brought Meta AI to their VR.
They used the heat from data centers, talking about AI, to heat the Olympic pool.
Researchers from MIT and ETH Zurich have developed a method for detecting breast cancer.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is July 24th, 2024, and you're listening and watching the Daily AI Show live. And because it's Wednesday, that means we are going to be talking about all the news that has come out over the last 7 days. So with us today, we have Jyunmi and Beth, and I'm Brian. We'll see if anybody else pops in the door. But there's plenty of news to talk about this week, including, I think we start off with one of the biggest ones, which is that Meta just introduced Llama 3.1. So I don't know, Jyunmi or Beth, if you guys want to kind of jump in with this one and talk about it. I know a little bit. I watched an interview, like I was saying right before we went live, that was really good. I think it was CNBC. I'm going to go find that so I could say the person's name right, because it was a really good interview and I want to make sure I'm giving reference to it. But if you guys want to talk about what 3.1 is, what Llama's doing, and what makes them difference, I think that would be awesome.
So Llama 3.1 is a 400... Llama 3.1 released the 405 billion parameter large language model. So it's open source. The people who are firmly open source have some pushback about it actually being open source, but it's the most open source of the large model competitive kind of things. And they not only released the model, which is great, they released the weights and they released all that information, but they also released a research paper concurrently about what they ran into when they were developing it. So if you're a real AI wonk, that's actually in some ways more exciting than the actual release of the model. But the release of the model is it's competitive with the frontier model. It is at the level of GPT-4, and that's just straight out of the box without fine-tuning or doing the sorts of things that you can do because it's open source, right? So that's part of why people are so excited. Yeah, Jyunmi, what did you think?
Well, I was going to say, and I found it interesting, but in line with Meta's overall campaign or plan, is they highlighted the ability of Llama 3.1 by doing those AI selfies, by modifying those AI selfies feature, right? So while it may be funny in the context of, oh, here's this huge model, you've got all of this information now and you can really dig in. But they show, it's like, but what you can do with it right now on Meta is do the AI selfies. I thought that was really fun of them. And, you know, in their style, it's all about getting engagement and, you know, using their system and stuff like that. As a side story, and I think with a little less fanfare, is they brought Meta AI to their VR headset. So a little more quiet release. But there was a few video blogs out there showing how Meta AI is now on their VR headset, which what stood out to me is that's probably the biggest step forward or largest install base for spatial computing, right? Mm-hmm. So we hear a lot about the Apple side of things and, you know, incredible hardware and software and OS and stuff like that and all the apps that you can make for it. But I think the largest VR headset use out there has been the Oculus, and that's all under Meta. So I thought that was an interesting twist on that.
Yeah, I wanted to bring in too what I saw in an interview yesterday. Like I said, I was mentioning it, but I wanted to get it right. So this was the YouTube video you can go check out is from Bloomberg Originals, and the host is Emily Chang. And this is probably the 5th or 6th different interview I've seen with Emily Chang, and she blows me away every single time. Usually I don't know that necessarily the interviewer is somebody that I would remember necessarily. Usually it's about whatever they covered. She's so super intelligent. She's so locked in with AI. She's not asking the kind of questions that any of the three of us would be like, that's what you're wasting your question on. They're legit questions, things that all of us would want to ask. And so she was having a great conversation with Mark Zuckerberg, and he's been doing this 20 plus years in this role. And so, yes, some of his answers come across a little, I would say almost political like, where he starts with, well, look, here's the deal. I know he kind of sounds like but this is what he was saying. And why I think this translates into like what he was talking about with Llama 3.1. He talked about, I think, Beth, you also shared this quote from another source, but it was the same, which is he was talking about agents and the idea of AI playing a role in the future where there's not like a few agents, there's millions, if not billions of different types of agents and AI assistants, if you will, that go and help people in all sorts of different ways. And so he was reflecting back on what they feel like their main focus of Meta and AI, which is to connect people. And in his mind, this was just yet one more way that they could help connect people. He talked about the Meta glasses. What I thought was interesting is he said, when we started developing the Ray-Ban Meta glasses, we didn't know about where AI would be. In other words, they were developing that product before they had a sense of like 3.5 or November of 2022 when things kind of took off or whatever. It's really interesting that you think, oh, this big company, of course they knew. No, he's like, we didn't know that was going to happen. That happened during the production phase of working on these glasses and everything. And so anyway, I just thought it was a really interesting interview. But in terms of Llama, it really was for them going back to that core message of these are tools to connect people. And we think there's going to be millions or billions of different ways for people to connect people. Can you guys hear the sound? Sorry.
We can. No worries.
Yeah,
no, it's classic Paris. It's classic Paris, Brian. It just drew me into party free car chase through the streets. It's fantastic.
And I'm on the 7th floor, so like you would think it wouldn't be as loud, but I'm also like one road over from the Seine River. And of course, with the opening ceremonies happening in 2 days, that's my news, right? The opening ceremony happening in 2 days, there's just a lot of activity, but it just comes right up the buildings. I'm always surprised at how loud it sounds, 7 floors up or whatever. So sorry about that. There might be more of that. I'll just let you know. But I can pivot this because talking about Paris, there was a cool video I watched just earlier today talking about how they use the heat from data centers, talking about AI, to heat the Olympic pool. Isn't that cool? They used the heat from the data centers and piped it, or however that major process was. This was from a YouTube video. Another. I'll drop another channel I really like, the B1M. Well done about infrastructure and all that kind of stuff. If you're into that stuff, but he was talking about how this is like Paris's, and it's evident when you're here. They are very much about this is a green Olympics. You can see that in all the stories about all the athletes. You'll see it again and again, I'm sure, on the U.S. stuff about them having basically cardboard beds. That's 100% true. They also didn't install AC in any of the team villages and stuff like that, because they said that the mayor was stated as saying, like, I'm more concerned about, in a healthy future than I am whether the athletes have AC or whatever. I also think it's kind of like the French don't have AC over here, so they know their athletes are already acclimated to that. So maybe it's a little push and a nod towards the home team a little bit. But anyway, that's not the AI story. But there's a lot of green energy, a lot of green about the Olympics here, which is super cool. But the idea of taking heat that's going to be produced, we talk about this all the time, the massive heat and cooling that's needed and so on and so forth for data centers. They used it in an innovative way, and it when you're watching swimming in the Olympics, just know that pool is being heated by AI, or at least that's the headline, right? It's a little bit of a stretch, but it's a good headline. AI heats the Olympic pool.
Wow!
Hey, Carl just joined us too, so welcome, Carl.
In a slight pivot, I have a AI is good story. And it's, of course, a science story. I love those. But the pivot is, it's from the University of Florida. Man, there was 2 schools. I had a 50-50 chance to know if this was Brian's school or not. So
I'll throw this in there so that's clear for everybody. It's on the record. I went to UGA, and UGA is a huge rival of the University of Florida. And even though University of Florida is only 2 hours from my house, I am absolutely not, I repeat, not a UF fan. But please continue with your story. I'm sure it's amazing.
Man, coin flip on that and I lost. All right, cool. Well, the story is a new video test for Parkinson's uses AI to track how the disease is progressing. So we've heard how AI is used in a lot of testing, and a lot of science is mundane testing over and over and over, or we're seeing machine learning and AI being used to do early detection and things like that. And so this new process is in that realm. So what happens is one of the most common tests for Parkinson's, and if you don't know, Parkinson's is a brain disorder. It's part of those family of disorders like Alzheimer's, dementia, and other brain diseases. And it's very debilitating. And so one of the tests that they use is a technician or clinician will watch for a rapid tapping test, right, between finger and thumb and things like that. And what they notice as part of that test will give them early indications of how the disease is progressing. So this is not early detection in terms of can we find it before it's being diagnosed, but this is more of being able to see with greater detail how the disease is progressing and providing more accurate treatments and better treatments and overall quality of life kinds of things. But the way that AI gets involved is, since it's a video processing technique now, they can record that test being done from anywhere. So if the patient couldn't come in to an office or have a clinician go out to them or anything like that, it provides them a way to record themselves doing the test, and then the AI can spot these possible differences. So it provides this level of healthcare in a more ubiquitous method. And of course, because AI can process that test quicker, you can do far more tests. So for me, that's a big win in the AI is good and AI in science mark.
Yeah, and actually, to build on that, like AI is doing such great things in terms of disease diagnosis, right? I mean, there's so much happening. There's another story. Researchers from MIT and ETH Zurich have developed a method for detecting breast cancer, right? In situ. I don't know how you pronounce that. But it analyzes chromatin images from 560 tissue samples, so 122 patients, identifying 8 distinct cell states across DCIS. So one of the things that I think is being shown in this kind of story is we think about large language models as like actual languages, right? So languages we consider language. English, Spanish, French, also code, right? Code is a language too. But really, it's a pattern recognition based on the patterns that exist in language. It can recognize language or patterns in other things like mammograms, like looking at images of breast tissue. And I find that really exciting. Did anyone else see that? How do you feel about it?
I didn't see it, but I was just going to say to both yours and Jyunmi's story, I love what Jyunmi called it, like, I love a good AI for good story. And I think, especially in healthcare, we've seen these quite a few times over. And what I start to hear more and more, especially on the home side, is that, AI really will be able to help more people do more diagnostic tests by themselves with high accuracy. And you just think about how that could amplify and catch things early, whatever it might be. I don't know. It's not a news story, but I love hearing those stories, and I'm glad that we always bring them up, because it just gives me so much hope for people being able to catch things early, which is obviously such a huge factor in most disease states, and not all of them, obviously. with being able to, do something, have a better treatment plan for whatever it is. So I think both stories are super cool.
One of the details in this is cell states associated with invasive cancer were detected even in seemingly normal tissue, right? Yeah. So the inference that I'm getting from that is tissue that a radiologist would look at and say, oh, no, there's no cancer there, right? It's fine.
Yeah.
But AI can detect, because again, it can detect kind of, it takes in all the pieces of the visual as though they're equal. Right? We have to give it the inferences of saying this is important and this isn't important. In being able to look at that, it can really super early detection. Very exciting.
Yeah, and I'll just say to that really quick. I mean, not obviously. What I was going to say is, my mom passed. I think I've mentioned that on the show before. I'm sure I haven't in passing, but my mom passed at the age of 56 from technically breast cancer, and the reason I say technically is 6 years earlier, she had breast cancer and beat it and was actually, let's say, healthy. But when we say healthy, what we're really saying is she passed the 5-year mark. And kind of what you're saying, Beth, and maybe there's some crossover here, is that what we really think is, even though she was getting tests and updates and all the things she was supposed to do, she didn't ignore anything. She was doing exactly as was prescribed to, have a healthy life. But when the cancer was detected, it was already, for the most part, spread in millimeter sections all throughout her body. So did my mom pass away from breast cancer? Well, that was the initial place that she had cancer 6 years or 7 years earlier at that point. And so that's how they sort of label it, which I think is interesting, I guess. But the reality is she actually passed away because she had small spots of cancer throughout her brain, lungs, tissue, bone, and so on and so forth. And so who knows, maybe in the future, something like what you're talking about, Beth, would save somebody like my mom who was going through the test, and perhaps these things would have been picked up, whereas, they hadn't before. So certainly from my own personal life, I know things like this give me a lot of hope for the next generations. And I will tell you, my mom was the type of person that was like, she truly believed that she might be able to live long enough after the first round to see cancer be cured. And of course, now I think we think of cancer, and we now don't really think of it as this one singular. It's like AGI. It's not a singular event anymore. Curing cancer might be 1,000 different things, and they all might be, as we've talked about on the show and talked about news and talked about stories and companies that are doing this. It's probably going to be these highly, highly personalized dosages and prescriptions and whatever. And that's what my mom would have gotten in the future. So who knows? Maybe this saves the next person down the road, or in the near future, we will see a lot of people get the detection early enough so they can get the treatments that are, also being helped with AI, which should be super cool. So.
Well, I want to jump in there because, like you, Brian, my mom was the same thing, and she had breast cancer remission, breast cancer remission, breast cancer remission, and then I think it just to the point where it spread too much, and it's weird because it couldn't catch it after remission.
Yeah.
So I think it isn't just preventative, but it's also, I just know there's a lot of people who were in remission and then just suddenly came back with a vengeance, right? So how could AI detect after you get remission? How can it detect that? Because I think that'll save even just up the number of people, because once you usually speaking to a lot of cancer, either survivors or there are cancers in remission, I'm just worried right now because I don't know. And, you go regular testing, but sometimes you're like, I feel really good. Feels, could have disappeared, but it's it comes back pretty quick. And unless you're testing every week or every month, which isn't it's not something that you want to keep doing, how can AI do that? And maybe to the point, it's hey, maybe it's just I can just do that at home. And then,
other biomarkers.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's a personal thing. You don't have to go to the doctor, set an appointment because it takes too long. So it's I could just test it at home. It's and then you can catch a lot of things earlier or after your remission. So that's a really cool, that's one of the things from a healthcare perspective I'm really excited about.
Yeah, and perhaps we can move on to another topic. I didn't know that, by the way. Thanks for sharing that, Carl. But perhaps we'll redefine what remission is.
Yep.
Perhaps AI will help us redefine what remission. Maybe what we've generally or historically, this is from somebody who is not well versed in cancer treatment. So please don't come at me because I'm saying I'm not an expert by any means. But perhaps that AI and some of these other detectors and abilities and being able to put the power of 1,000, specialists in the hands of anybody at home frequently without doing detrimental, effects to them. Who knows where that can take it? But you would suspect that that's going to increase the chances of survival rate beyond 5, 10, 15 years, for sure.
So Cisco is merging our two stories. Doesn't HIPAA make local open source AI, edge AI, essential in healthcare to ensure patient data privacy? I think that's a really interesting idea. Yeah. What do you guys think?
So to answer your question, Justin, technically,
Justin, sorry.
Yeah. Technically, it does not require it. HIPAA is a certain level of compliance, and as long as the company who is ever handling the data meets those compliance requirements, then they're good to go. That's why most healthcare is privatized, and they use their own systems and things like that to help keep all of that data private. Now, I think the interesting take on it is you would not be using a public version necessarily of the current frontier models. I think that's the good or the key point to highlight. So yes, you wouldn't send the information to ChatGPT to get an answer and then get it returned back. It would have to be through their enterprise level where they can provide SOC 2 compliance and all that kind of stuff. And that's just data handling. Now, how that data interacts and where it's stored, where Jen's additional question comes in about where that information is stored and how that information is stored, that becomes a trickier question, because how much of it, obviously, it shouldn't go into the training data set and shouldn't be updating those public frontier AI models. So a private installation or install of an open source AI would be a great way to be able to monitor all the behind the scenes kind of thing. So yeah, I think that would be a better solution. But of course, in the end, it's going to be their version of it, right? And that's the whole open source model, is you take it. If you made any technical advances, then you release that for everyone to use, but not necessarily the data set or anything like that. Now, this kind of pivots into wanting to know more about what it behind the scenes and how the models work. Is senators sent out an open letter to OpenAI to ask Sam Altman, can you answer these questions? Because there's a lot of public concern out there. And some of the questions were about non-compete clauses and whistleblowers, and also identifying what's happening, in the black box, or what's happening behind the curtain, right? And those kinds of things. So right now, the answers have been fairly corporate and politic. So no real information as of yet from what I've been able to see. But it is a highlight of various sectors trying to increase the amount of transparency so that the government can look at or have a proper look at making regulations or proper regulations. Because if you don't know what you don't know, how are you going to rule on it, right? And we've always said that that's a big issue in the current government.
Well, I have another story real quick on that has been all over social media, which is EA Sports College Football 25. So if you're a gamer, not even a gamer, I would say, I obviously remember this game from years and years ago. I really don't play a whole lot of games and stuff, but I'm certainly aware of this one. And the AI side of this is that the reason that EA Sports had stopped producing the game was over copyright issues. Now, in those years, two really important things have happened. A lot of changes in college football or college sports, NCAA in the States when it comes to name, image, and likeness. And we're seeing more and more players get paid for those types of things. Also, technology has come a long way. And so, whereas in like an NFL game, you would still do full body scans because there's only so many NFL players. Well, there's 11,000 college players. So that's not really repeatable. You can't do that. You can't scale that, I guess I should say. So what they did was they used AI engines and technology to create 3D avatars off of just headshots, and able to put those into the game. But just so in case everybody's wondering, yes, the players the individuals had to sign off on it. They got at least $600 is what this particular article said. And they also got a deluxe copy of the game at least $600. More prominent players received higher amounts in return for helping promote the game by being on the game cover and encouraging people to buy it on social media. So really interesting. But you can imagine the lift of trying to put 11,000 players into a game. And this game has been all over the internet. I think it's been a huge win from what I understand. And I'm sure EA Sports is not really paying each of those players at least $600. I doubt that's really hitting their biggie banks too hard.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions I've got about this whole story, right? So number one, EA is notorious in the gaming sphere, right? They're bad. Sorry, my opinion, but they are the proponents of the crunch, which is terrible for game developers, all of those kinds of things. And they've been in constant battle with their various workforces and their customers as well because of overpricing and all these other kinds of things. So when I hear that the average or most players got $600 for their NIL rights, that blows my mind. That is such a tiny, tiny number of the millions that they'll make off of this. Now, I understand, yes, there's 11,000 of them, and, some are going to be more popular. I totally get all of that.
And if you're third-string kicker...
What I also want to know is what the contract is. What is the license for the NIL rights? Because if it's, yes, we can be in this game, yes, it's for this limited time, but most of these corporations will put in, or these companies will put in language like in perpetuity for use in all of our products, universally and beyond, and, crazy language like that. But it's common. So I would love to see more details on what the contract is. Right, because NIL is a huge booming area for both the NCAA and all anything that's game related or sports related, because of those rulings of the last few years, which allows the players to finally get a little bit of all of the effort and what they contribute to the profits of these companies. So I'd love to know the details about the contract. So if anybody has that info, let me know, because I think that's going to be a real interesting piece beyond the $600 and here's a copy of the game. I mean, that sounds like something that you would give your kid brother. It's like, hey, do some chores for me, and here's a copy of this video game. And off of that, I made $1 million or whatever. But yes. So if anyone has a copy of that contract, please send it out my way. I would love to read the details.
I think you have a really good point here, Jyunmi, which is, okay, let's just say maybe $600 is accurate for player number 5,742, right? They're, like I said, they're a third string kicker on a very small college team. They have every right to be part of the game, but how often is that player going to ever appear on screen? So on and so forth. Let's just say 600, that athlete is like, I'll take it, right? But how many also times, to this point, I'm not justifying it. What I'm saying, you're right, Jyunmi, which is how many times have we seen let's call him a no-name college player become a huge name in the NFL? So does that mean 2 or 3 years down the road, EA Sports is now able to, they'll be like, hey, you got your 600 at the time of where your popularity was, you got a baseline. Now you're in the NFL. Now we can still sell this game. Can they still use it in perpetuity, like you said? Is there anything else?
It's just like a rookie card, right?
Well,
Hey,
yeah.
this is my rookie card. Okay, cool. I'm nobody. 10 years down the line, I am the best athlete ever, and everybody loves me. Oh, my rookie card's worth thousands of dollars now.
Yeah.
You know, it's that same kind of concept.
Right.
And with the advancement of AI, this is something that just popped in my head. But with the advancement of AI and how it is being put into developing more detailed information in something like a video game, where does it cross from video game to simulation? And if you are breaking down stats, particularly in sports games, you can break down stats and abilities and quantify those abilities of those athletes, and it becomes more of an indicator. This is them in college. Everybody plays them because they turn out to be so good in X strategy or whatever, and then that correlates to them in a post-college experience. I'm just saying, it's a great way to transition that, and it's an additional data point. Okay, I'll digress.
You're saying 2 weeks before draft in the NFL, all the coaches will be playing round the clock to find out who truly is their
playbook, right?
The Moneyball player
translated into the game. Yeah. And then figure it out from there. It's like, no, we want to move this guy up 3 points in the draft.
I mean, that would be a crazy story, but it's not outside the realm of possibility. So, sorry, I think I was cutting you off, Beth. Go ahead.
Well, I'm thinking next week, are we talking about who owns your data? Like this kind of thing. We're actually, when we talk about this, we often talk about, like, are you the spokesperson for your organization? You've let them create an avatar of you. Now you leave. Who owns that avatar? But this is exactly that same piece, right? So I signed the rights because when I was a junior in college, $600 was like amazing. Does that then mean that I've lost the rights for my name, my likeness, those sorts of things to be my income, part of what I get from being a professional player? Like these are serious questions.
I think, like, someone who follows college football quite a lot and, been really, following the NIL, I think this also goes beyond AI, because there's the issue with Marvin Harrison Jr. and how he couldn't even sign the regular NFLPA or the deal that the NFL has. So he couldn't even get his jersey. No one could buy his jerseys. And for those who don't know, I think he is a top 5 pick for the Arizona Cardinals. And most NFL rookies could, you can buy their jerseys, buy their, all the gear related to them. But he couldn't, because he signed an actual deal with a company called Fanatics, where they did it way back. But now they also own his rights. So he couldn't even sign that deal because they owned it. So only they could sell his merchandise, right? So that's where a lot of college students, especially those, now mind you, there's like a very small percentage who will go on to become pro athletes, right? So for the majority, it wouldn't matter. $600, thank you very much. It will mean nothing because I'm going on to do something else. No one's ever going to make, it'd be cool, like, show your kids 20 years down the road, hey, look, I was on a video game. I was this player from North Dakota, like State Southern or whatever it was. Like, okay, cool. But for those who do go on, yeah, it's a really big thing, because then it's like, okay, well, now all these people are making money off me and my likeness, and like, how much money is EA making versus what I should be making? And this is why the NIL was originally set up. It's like, all these companies are taking advantage of these essentially kids, and they couldn't do anything about it. And yeah, hey, free college education and free room and board like doesn't mean anything when companies are making billions off you. So yeah, it's fascinating where this is going to go. And then you add the AI on top of it. And the video game is just one piece, right? You could see other applications of this in the future too.
I mean, look, we're going to talk about it next week. As Beth mentioned, it's definitely one of our show topics, but it's something we should talk about in the show. So I'll do this and we can kind of bump to some other news stories real quick. But
I do have one.
Let me just finish this one. We'll jump to news stories. What I was going to say real quick is, you're right. Like, is Silicon Valley, the future Silicon Valley, picking early bets on who might become a Mark Cuban or a Zuck or whatever, and they're signing deals when these men and women are poor, they don't have anything, but they're in Y Combinator, and somebody's going to take a bet on them and say, hey, we'll invest, but really it's not about your company. We don't really care. We actually think you're the star, and so we'll give you X amount of dollars to bootstrap you and help you get off the ground because you need it for your company. But what we want you to do is sign on the dotted line here, and they get the money, they get name, image, and likeness. Somebody creates a sim game where it's, build your own tech startup using AI, yada, yada. And now somebody has access to early Zuck, early Mark Cuban, early Elon Musk, whatever. I mean, just because it's in sports doesn't mean we won't see the transfer. So it's something we can definitely talk about on the show next week. Sorry, Carl, go ahead.
So the news that I wanted to point out, and it's really, I'm excited personally because I've been arguing with my wife about this, where I was like, I will pay anything for something that can take out the recycling. Literally, that's the only. So 2026, Elon Musk says that the Optimus robot will be for sale. So I'm really excited about that. More so, I want to see if it actually works or not. And 2026 is still a couple of years away. And then, it was a TechCrunch story, just to see where all the other
Did they say how much it was going to be?
I didn't say, but you know what? I told Andre, it doesn't matter. The time that I could save from not taking out the recycling, the garbage, having to wash my dishes, and putting these dishes away is outstanding. Now, if this thing takes like an hour to do all this, then we have a problem. So it depends on the time saved versus.
Well, why would it matter?
It wouldn't matter because imagine if it's picking up your recycling and walking to the recycling. We have recycling bins, walking to it, and things are falling out of it. And then it gets there and only half of it comes and then it throws it out. And that took 20 minutes. But I still have to go pick up everything and throw it back out.
Oh,
that's
okay.
Well, time.
That sounds like, I mean, that's a quality thing, of course.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
If they performed it perfectly, but it took an hour or took 10 minutes, I mean, that doesn't sound like too
you're not having to do it. Yeah.
Sure. That'll get done. It'll take an hour. It's fine.
I will say, too, it depends on the level of recycling because I lived or was over in Berlin for 2 months, and Berlin's level of recycling, maybe where it is like where you are, Carl, is at a whole other level. There was like 9 bins. We're trying to read them in German. That was a whole other level of recycling. Now, at my house in Florida, everything but glass goes in the same bin and it goes on the driveway. Super easy, right? So it just depends too, right? I love it. I love that you push this as like a 6-year-old, though, kid. Carl, you're like, I don't want to do the dishes. I don't want to clean up after myself. I wanted to take out the trash. I don't want my wife to tell me to do it anymore. I just need a Tesla robot to handle this.
Yes. The Optimus robot is essentially what I needed to do. That is what I really want AI to do. I don't care about productivity, efficiency. I don't care any of that. I want to make sure it does the landscaping work that I have to do. I don't want to be mowing my lawn, which my lawn is on a hill. So I have to pretty much put my football cleats on and mow it. I'm like, if this robot can do this for me, this is fantastic. It essentially has solved all my problems. I don't care if I have to go back to not use Claude, ChatGPT. I don't care about that. If this does what it's supposed to do, then AI has a vibe for me.
I love it. I love it.
It's all worth it. Gotcha.
It's all worth it. That's certainly what I'm looking for.
Hey, Beth,
they make a Roomba for your lawn, Carl. There is a... Sorry.
I know, but can I yell at it too? Be like, hey, you didn't finish. I need you to finish that little piece. You missed that.
Yeah.
That's what
You can yell all you want. I'm not sure it goes back in response to your yelling.
I would like it to have a face and be like, oh, in a very, very, very happy tone, be like, oh, I'm sorry, Carl, I will do that. And then it will do it. And then I will yell at it some more and it'll be still happy. the entire time. But then let's turn to like Andrea and be like, hey, look,
Carl, it's supposed to take care of chores. It's not supposed to provide therapeutic advice. It's not a therapeutic device there.
Carl's throwing other weeds in the lawn just so he could tell the damn robot that it missed.
Right.
For its own enjoyment. Hey, Beth, I think you said you had one more story that you wanted to share as well, one news story before we start wrapping up. Did you have one more?
I do. I think it's important that we talk about Grok's, the Elon's big giant data center in the context of the first story. So 3.1 came out, Llama 3.1 came out from Zuckerberg. That was trained on 16,000 H100s. The data center that got turned on this week, is 100,000 H100s, right? So, and part of looking at what Meta has done and being able to say, oh, actually, it really is scale and information. It sort of looks like, wow, maybe Anthropic and OpenAI and Google don't have like a secret sauce that is unreachable by anyone else because they're very special, right? There is some evidence in this that actually the very special thing, or one of the key very special ingredients, is this is the amount of compute that you can have, and that's what that is. And Grok, Grok, with X has been sort of laughed at, like it's not a serious large language model because its ability are so far behind what the other frontier models have. But don't sleep on Grok. Like that, we may be saying something very soon, not very soon, takes a long time to do stuff. But we may be saying something sooner than people would think. That's my last story. Thanks.
Yeah, and then I'm gonna have to be like, oh, look what you could do with Grok. I'm gonna be so excited about it.
I'm not saying you have to be excited.
Yeah, we're just here to pass along information. I don't have to love it. Hey, maybe it'll be great. I don't know.
You could throw weeds in Grok's way too if you want, right? Sure. Like how you interact with Grok is on you.
That's true.
We call that our testing parameters, throwing weeds in front of it.
Yeah.
So yeah. It's like, all right, we got a new AI. Everybody, got ready to throw their weeds in front of it, and we'll see how it turns it out. Yeah, sounds good.
Well, listen, next week, that's a good pivot. Next week, we will be talking about GPT-4o Mini, and we will be throwing weeds in front of it, meaning we will be throwing some of our best, our favorite prompts at it to see, as a comparison, to see how it performs against larger models. So that's actually a show coming up next week as well. So we'll wrap today up at what we have coming up tomorrow as far as Thursday. Beth is going to be leading us through some prompting exercises, talking about structured prompts, talking about Google AI Studio. Really, I highly recommend coming back and listening to that one. You're going to learn a ton just about prompting and everything else. Beth is a true expert in there. We all learn from her. So that'll be tomorrow. And then Friday, Carl's going to actually be talking about a company called getfloorplans.com. But bigger than that, we're going to be talking about AI as a service, something that this company is doing. Carl's also going to take us through a demo and kind of show us what they're doing, what you get, what you're paying for, and then what comes out the other side. Really, really interesting conversation coming up on Friday. So come on back, hang out with us for the rest of the week. Don't forget, you can go to dailyaishow.com. Over there, you'll find a whole bunch more information about all our episodes. You can sign up for our newsletter, which has been going out every Sunday now for a couple of weeks and doing really well and growing really fast, which is great. And you could also find out about consulting services there, should you or your team be looking for folks to come in and assess what you have going on with AI, or perhaps start an AI strategy for you. Then that's something that we're working with a lot of people on, so you can certainly reach out to us through the website as well. That's it for today, though. Until tomorrow, have a great day, okay?
Aloha.